welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are going to unpack something we all do every single day, and that is making decisions. But we are not just talking about, like, should I order pizza or salad kind of choices.
No. We are going much deeper into the fascinating world of neuroscience. I think you've gathered some really interesting sources for us to explore today. You've got a TEDx talk by a neuroscientist, a Wall Street Journal video about cutting-edge brain research, and a university lecture on decision-making styles. It's a real smorgasbord of knowledge.
It is. And get ready, listeners, for some aha moments as we explore the science behind how our brains make those everyday choices, both big and small.
And it all starts with our brain's incredible ability to simulate future experiences. Something Professor Soyoung Park explains beautifully in her TEDx talk.
Okay, so my brain is basically a time traveler.
Well, in a way, yes. Your brain, our brains, they're constantly running simulations to predict how rewarding a potential experience will be. So let's say you're choosing between, strawberry and chocolate ice cream.
Always a tough one.
Always a tough one. Well, your brain will simulate the experience of tasting each flavor, drawing on past experiences and memories. And if your brain predicts that chocolate will be more rewarding based on, your love for all things chocolate, you're more likely to choose it.
So good decision-making boils down to accurate simulations.
Exactly. The more accurately those simulations match the actual experience, the better our decisions tend to be. And this is where the Wall Street Journal video comes in, highlighting how neuroscientists are working to crack the neural code to understand how information is represented and stored in our brains.
Neural code, that sounds intense. So what is that exactly?
So imagine each neuron in your brain as a tiny switch that can be on or off. And the neural code is the pattern of activity across millions of these neurons. A bit like a complex electrical symphony happening in your head.
So scientists are eavesdropping on these brain symphonies.
They are. The Wall Street Journal video describes how researchers are using cutting-edge silicon probes to record activity from hundreds, even thousands of neurons simultaneously. These probes are like tiny microphones, allowing scientists to decipher the neural code and understand how our brains represent and process information.
Incredible. So the more we understand this neural code, the better we can understand decision-making.
Absolutely. And Professor Park emphasizes the importance of learning and experience in shaping these imaginations, as she calls them.
Like the more ice cream I taste, the better my brain gets at predicting which flavor I'll enjoy most.
Precisely. Each experience adds to our mental library of potential outcomes, allowing us to make more informed predictions. But we don't just learn from our own experiences.
Ah, yes. The wisdom of the crowd, or just, listening to my friends' restaurant recommendations.
Exactly. Social learning plays a huge role in our decision-making. Professor Park highlights a fascinating study where people were more likely to choose a product simply because they saw someone else looking at it. So even just observing others' choices can influence our own.
It is. This I can tell you what to eat study. It's a powerful reminder of how interconnected we are and how our brains are constantly absorbing information from our social environment.
So our brains are time-traveling simulators, learning machines, and social sponges. Sounds like a recipe for some pretty complex decisions.
It can be, especially when the world around us is changing rapidly.
You mean like when my favorite coffee shop rearranges their menu and I suddenly feel lost and confused?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Professor Park shares a funny anecdote about her neighbor who experienced a similar feeling of disorientation when his local supermarket rearranged its aisles.
I'm already hooked. Tell me more about this supermarket saga.
So this poor neighbor, he was utterly frustrated because he couldn't find the milk in its usual spot. He felt lost and annoyed, even though, it was a minor inconvenience. And this highlights how we rely on our personal maps of the world, those mental models we've built up based on past experiences.
So when the world changes, our maps need updating. Precisely. And if we don't update our maps, we can end up feeling lost, frustrated, and even resistant to change. Professor Park points out that rapid change, like the upheaval many experienced during the COVID-19 pandemic, can make it even harder to keep our maps up to date.
So how do we avoid getting stuck with outdated maps? What are the keys to staying adaptable in a constantly changing world?
Professor Park offers 3 strategies, all starting with a C, which is handy to remember. First up is curiosity.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about these C strategies.
Curiosity means being open to exploring new possibilities and challenging our assumptions. Instead of clinging to that, old supermarket layout, We need to be willing to wander down new aisles and discover where the milk has migrated to.
I love that analogy. So embrace the adventure of a rearranged supermarket.
Exactly. The second C is connection. Talking to others, especially those with different perspectives and experiences, can help us update our maps more effectively.
So it's not just about gathering information, it's about connecting with people who see the world differently.
Precisely. Sharing our experiences and listening to others can help us broaden our understanding and avoid getting stuck in our own limited viewpoints. And finally, the third C is one we could all use a little more of, a sense of humor.
Okay, I'm all ears. How does humor help with decision-making?
When things get chaotic and unpredictable, as they often do, humor can help us maintain perspective and avoid taking ourselves too seriously. It's like a pressure valve, releasing stress and allowing us to approach challenges with a more open and flexible mindset.
Great advice. I'm definitely going to try to channel my inner comedian the next time I'm feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Now let's shift gears a bit and delve into that University of Washington lecture you mentioned. They talk about these two fundamental brain pathways that influence decision-making, the go pathway and the no-go pathway.
Right. Imagine these pathways as two competing forces in your brain, each vying for control over your actions. The go pathway is all about seeking out rewards, pursuing those things that bring us pleasure and satisfaction.
So the go pathway is what motivates me to reach for that second slice of pizza, even though I know I'm probably full.
Exactly. It's driven by the anticipation of reward. Now, the no-go pathway, on the other hand, is focused on avoiding potential threats or negative outcomes.
So it's the voice of caution, the little angel on my shoulder whispering, maybe one slice is enough.
Precisely. It's what keeps us from doing things that might cause harm or lead to undesirable consequences. And what's fascinating is that the UW research suggests that people vary in their sensitivity to these two pathways. Some individuals are more driven by the go pathway, seeking out rewards and embracing novelty, while others are more influenced by the no-go pathway, prioritizing safety and avoiding potential risks.
So it's like having a gas pedal and brake pedal, and some people have a lead foot while others are more cautious drivers.
Perfect analogy. And the researchers actually use the terms seekers and avoiders to describe these different decision-making styles. To study this, they had participants engage in a task where they had to choose between different symbols, each associated with a different probability of winning or losing points.
Sounds like a game of chance. How did the seekers and avoiders approach this task differently?
The seekers, they were all about maximizing their gains. They quickly figured out which symbols were most likely to lead to rewards and focused their choices on those. The avoiders, on the other hand, were more cautious, prioritizing the avoidance of loss. They honed in on the symbols associated with the lowest probability of punishment, even if it meant missing out on some potential rewards.
So it's like some people play to win while others play not to lose.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that neither strategy is inherently better. Both seeking and avoiding are essential for navigating the world effectively. We need a balance of both to make sound decisions. However, the UW research revealed a surprising link between the no-go pathway and complex reasoning abilities.
Wait, you're saying that being more attuned to avoiding negative outcomes might actually make you a better thinker?
That's what the data suggests. They used a test called the Raven's Advanced Progressive Matrices, which measures abstract reasoning and pattern recognition. It's essentially a visual puzzle where you have to figure out the missing piece based on complex patterns. And participants who relied more on the avoid strategy in the probabilistic learning task actually performed better on this challenging reasoning test.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. But why would being more avoidant be linked to better reasoning skills?
It's a fascinating question. The researchers used MRI scans to look at brain activity while people were solving the Raven's test, and guess what they found? Activity in the no-go pathway was correlated with better performance. This suggests that the same brain circuitry that helps us avoid negative outcomes might also be involved in enhancing our ability to think critically and solve complex problems.
Wow, so maybe those of us who tend to overthink things and worry about potential pitfalls aren't so bad after all. Perhaps we're just flexing our no-go muscles and training our brains to be more analytical.
Exactly. And this brings us back to those personal maps we talked about earlier. It seems that training our brains to consider more information, to be more open to diverse perspectives, can actually lead to more accurate and adaptable maps.
It's like upgrading from a basic roadmap to a detailed GPS system, right? You get more routes, more information about the terrain, and you can adapt more easily to unexpected detours.
Precisely. And you know what's a fantastic example of this kind of natural brain training? Bilingualism.
Wait, are you saying that speaking more than one language can make you a better decision maker?
Think about it. Bilinguals are constantly juggling two languages and their associated rules, cultural norms, and ways of thinking. This constant mental juggling act forces their brains to become more flexible and adept at handling complexity.
So all those years of struggling with verb conjugations might actually be paying off in unexpected ways.
It seems so, and studies have shown that bilinguals actually outperform monolinguals on certain cognitive tasks, including those that require flexibility and inhibiting irrelevant information.
Wow, so being bilingual is like giving your brain a mental workout that strengthens its decision-making muscles.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. This bilingual advantage is actually linked to increased activity in the no-go pathway.
So the same pathway that helps us avoid negative outcomes is also involved in the enhanced cognitive abilities of bilinguals. That's incredible. It really highlights how interconnected our cognitive abilities are and how training our brains in one area can have surprising benefits in others.
It suggests that by consciously engaging in activities that challenge us to think differently, to consider multiple perspectives, we can potentially enhance our overall decision-making abilities.
This whole deep dive has been a real eye-opener. It's made me realize that decision-making is far more complex than I ever imagined.
It's not just about weighing pros and cons. It's about simulations, mental maps, go and no-go pathways, social influences, and even the power of language.
And speaking of choices, now that you have all this new knowledge about decision-making styles, here's a final thought for you to ponder. As you go about your day, pay close attention to your own decision-making process. Do you find yourself leaning more towards seeking rewards or avoiding punishment? Are you a seeker or an avoider?
How might this be influencing your choices in different areas of your life? And most importantly, are there ways you can consciously train your brain to be more flexible and adaptable in your decision-making style?
Food for thought. Word. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive into the fascinating world of decision-making. It's been a pleasure exploring these sources with you.
And remember, the more we understand about how our brains work, the better equipped we are to make informed and fulfilling choices.
So until next time, happy deciding. You know what fascinates me about all this is this idea that we're not just stuck with one decision-making style. We can actually train our brains to be more flexible, more adaptable.
It's empowering, isn't it? Knowing that we have the potential to improve our decision-making skills just by consciously engaging in activities that challenge us to think differently.
Absolutely. So it's not just about understanding our tendencies, it's about actively working to expand our mental repertoire.
Exactly. Think of it like cross-training for your brain. Just as athletes engage in various exercises to improve their overall performance, we can engage in activities that strengthen different, cognitive muscles, so to speak.
I love that analogy. So what are some ways we can cross-train our brains for better decision-making?
Well, we've already talked about the benefits of bilingualism. Learning a new language is a fantastic way to challenge your brain and enhance, cognitive flexibility.
So dust off those Duolingo apps, everyone. What else can we do?
Engaging in activities that require strategic thinking, like playing chess or solving puzzles, can also be beneficial. These activities force us to plan ahead, anticipate consequences, and adapt to changing circumstances.
So it's not just about mental workouts. It's about choosing activities that specifically target those decision-making skills.
Precisely. And don't underestimate the power of simply stepping outside of your comfort zone and trying new things. Whether it's traveling to a new place, taking up a new hobby, or simply striking up a conversation with someone you wouldn't normally talk to, exposing yourself to new experiences and perspectives can just broaden your horizons and make you a more adaptable thinker.
This deep dive has been packed with so many incredible insights. It's truly changed the way I think about decision-making.
It's been a pleasure exploring these sources with you, and I hope you found it as enlightening as I did.
Absolutely. And for our listeners, remember to pay attention to your own decision-making style. Are you a seeker, drawn to rewards, or an avoider focused on minimizing risks? And how can you challenge yourself to become a more well-rounded decision-maker?
And keep those C's in mind: curiosity, connection, and humor. They're your trusty companions on the journey to making better decisions.
So until next time, happy deciding, everyone.